Hello one, hello all, it's the gothiest ghost of them all, Caspa in the flesh, and it's time for a review of MGMT, Loss of Life. MGMT, CT Natives are back, and this is their 5th studio album, if we're not counting the live album, if we're not counting the remix album with Matthew Dear, consisting of Ben and Andrew, both multi-instrumentalists, both vocalists, first hitting the scene with their debut Oracular Spectacular, which is a display of electropop and indie-tronica cuts that are really groovy, returning to their very psychedelic and ambitious album, Congratulations, which was a departure from their electronic route, which some people thought was a disappointment, but I honestly loved it. And then dropping their lackluster self-titled album, and then dropping a very grim but humorous and dark and synthy, just the way I like it, Little Dark Age, that had a lot of pop bangers on there. And after hearing this album again and again, it would appear that MGMT aren't really focused too much on the bop element, which I could understand would be kind of a setback for some fans, because I have heard fans say that they've pretty much got rid of everything they liked about the past, and it's not on here, so it's boring, buh. But honestly, while they're not going for synth bops, even though there are synths on this album, I don't really see that as a bad thing. It's not like they threw away all their strengths completely and replaced them with weaknesses. No, it seems like they're making an amalgamation of what they've been able to do in the past and just create really moving, well-structured, psychedelic, and trippy songs. This is kind of like, in a way, the sister album to Congratulations. I feel like there's a kind of a back and forth thing where Oracular Spectacular, Little Dark Age kind of went hand in hand, and now we have Congratulations and Loss of Life hand in hand. But dare I say, this is probably the most emotional journey I've probably ever been on with MGMT, where they have the very powerful People in the Streets, where they have the very introspective Mother Nature, or the very dreary I Wish I Was Joking. And the way these tracks progress is fantastic. It's definitely a experience that I have had with an MGMT album before, but maybe not as layered, maybe not of this magnitude, as they're bringing this psychedelic realm of psych folk, progressive pop, dream pop, with some highly moving ballads that do have some synth work in there, especially with a very endearing and touching piano duet with Christine of the Queens on Dancing in Babylon, which are prime examples, and you'll see many of these prime examples of revivalism at its best, that has these really sweet, endearing piano lines, great vocal chemistry between these two, which does remind me of the chord progression of Bonnie Tyler's Total Eclipse of the Heart. Also, one thing I love about this album is the fantastic songwriting on this. It's very cryptic, but whenever I listen to it, I'm getting something a little different each time around, where I'm thinking to myself, is this the message? Is that the message? Are there multi-messages going on? Which I'm about to get into. Like Mother Nature, which I assume to be the coming-of-age song, and a song about yearning for partnership, with the struggles that are being had in the world that you can't really do it on your own, with some out there metaphors of torching fields, killing an honest man, metaphorically speaking, or running headfirst into thorns. It's very, these metaphors are very visceral, but they're very meaningful at the same time. I think if I was to peel this album back like an onion and tell you every single meaning, every single metaphor, we'd be here a long time. And I love the twangy, summery instrumentation with these warm bass builds, this bright wall of sound. The elegance and the uplifting, blissful feeling of it really reminds me of something the Beatles would have done with Smashing Pumpkins, and even a mix of Parannoul too. But to go back on this track, not to stay too long on this, but I feel this is important. I feel they are tearing down what they've once done before and they're just creating something else. So this loss of life they're referring to is most likely the loss of life of the image and the sound that they were once going for, and now starting over and then just making something fresh. And the production, the style, the lyrics definitely reflect on that. And as I mentioned, MGMT has never been a stranger to cryptic lyrics, as we get a plethora of on this album. But the way they do it sounds so epic and moving without it sounding cheesy, while giving you that psychedelic vintage feel without it sounding dated. Prime example, Bubblegum Dog. And I'm gonna be honest, I still don't know 100% what a bubblegum dog is, or what the bubblegum dog is, but given the dreading, ominous feel of these lyrics and the epic nature of the production, I assume it's something nefarious that has been catching up with our protagonists slowly but surely, and it's looking very grim. It's like grim consequences of a day they knew would arrive, and it's finally here. And I truly love the building wall of harmonies, the twinkling keys to these fiery riffs. Also, you have moments on here, as I alluded to earlier, that are very forlorn but also very compelling, but also add really quirky layers to what they're doing. Like the reverse guitar chords on People in the Streets, giving the track more personality, more eeriness, but also having that emotional tangibility at the same time. And I love the various percussive bits, especially the hand percussion as it echoes through the track, that just leads into a very powerful ending, a very impactful ending. As far as the lyrics go, it's immensely moving, and certainly what I'm getting from it is someone who is hearing the protests of the people in the streets and maybe not really experienced in what they've gone through, so they want to march with them, they want to march for their cause, but they're also afraid of the people in the streets because they may be part of the problem of why the people are in the streets protesting or living under conditions that their capitalistic ideology probably caused. Admittedly though, it's not 100% clear on what they're protesting about or why they're in the streets. It's just something I'm going off of the emotion and indication, which I think is fantastic. I think there should be a lot of music out there that gives you an indication but not quite an understanding, something you could like form on your own, which I think is great. I think is amazing. And I'm loving MGMT for doing this and making tracks like this. But for me, I do think this comes from a good and important place of why they're protesting. And there's also the quirky but devastating I Wish I Was Joking. I would say probably has a more clear message than most of these tracks, pertaining to drug use, depression, just really coming out and saying how they feel and the trauma they're going through, the emotions they're going through, and saying, I wish I was joking, I wish I was lying to you. And the laugh track at the end is just great. And I'm not sure if this is coming from a genuine place. It does feel like it's coming from a genuine place, but I do feel there is a sense of humor that's embedded within the darkness here. And I love the warbly reverb vocals, the squiggly synths against the murky organs, and how the Floydian horns and the bass just give it this nocturnal psychedelic feel. And the baritone vocals remind me of Bowie when he would sing within a baritone register, and maybe some Kieran J. Callahan as well. It's certainly one of the lowest registers they've probably sung in. It definitely sounds very seasoned. It definitely sounds very coming of age. And also, I feel the title track, which ties into the intro, part 2, which leads me to believe maybe that this album should be listened to backwards, which I've done, and maybe I need to do that again because there's probably something I might be missing here. Not saying I don't enjoy the album, or maybe this is one of those albums where you gotta listen to the title track and then the intro to connect the two. But I do find it absolutely gorgeous, very stunning. There is repetition, so you are getting the same melody, but it's done with different instrumentation, which I think is genius, I think is great. Diving into this very glitchy feedback on the back end, which all the white noise and fuzzy instrumentation feels like I'm being transported to the other side. Another life, a life from the one that was lost. The album does hit a bit of a lull though, in the middle, which an MGMT album has been known for, unfortunately. But damn if that doesn't take away the overall album experience and enjoyment I have, because honestly, I think this album is fantastic. The songwriting is great, the quirky elements to building of the structures of the climaxes of these tracks is amazing. With great metaphors, very thoughtful lyrics. It's a very introspective album, it's a very personal album, and one I could have that experience with quite a lot. Quite a lot. I could definitely go back to this album, for sure. With lyrics that keep me engaged, builds that keep me engaged, and I'm loving this. I am feeling a 4 out of 5 Black Hearts on this album. If you've given this a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Why? casspa, Gothic Ghost, MGMT, Loss of Life. Till we meet again.